Good morning, Maine. Don't say that too often. Usually I start these in the afternoon or the evening. But hi, this is Chuck Ellis, the host of the Muddy Waters podcast, and we're here with a bit of a special edition. We'll call it a legislative update with some of the things that have been going on, in our world in Augusta. I felt like it would be a good idea to bring on somebody who knows a little bit more about the shenanigans that are happening in Augusta and have her help us better understand what's going on. I tried explaining this to somebody recently and ended up confusing them and myself. I felt like, even though I think I've got a pretty good grasp on how it works, I'm not as good at explaining it. And after all, I'm just an idiot with a podcast. This works because I bring on the people who actually know what they're doing. So here we go. We've got Representative Katrina Smith will be helping us understand the shenanigans in Augusta. Thank you for taking time on your Saturday morning after a long, annoying week in Augusta to help the people of Maine better understand what is going on that obviously the mainstream media will not do a good job of covering.
Well, thank you for having me. I will certainly try.
Well, it's a complicated mess, right? And there's shenanigans involved.
Yeah, absolutely. It's meant to confuse, I think, could be the point that you have from the Democrats. It's meant to confuse even us sitting in the chairs trying to figure out what they're doing.
Well, it's a very good topic to be on the Muddy Waters podcast, after all, because it is, it's muddy, and I think you would say, and I would agree that it's by design, as much as they can confuse. So our goal is to help you navigate through that muddy water, and better understand like what's happening. So, so basically, I understand. There's a couple of things that I want to actually ask because no bills have been passed, and most of the work that's been done in Augusta so far has just been budgets, right? There's been the supplemental budget, and now the biennial budget. Is that right?
Well, within committees, people are definitely doing the work now. It's really ramped up. What we've seen, though, are the committees, even when they vote on issues, we haven't seen. Usually the votes in the committee, the bill will come on into the chamber and we'll vote on them. We'll have what's called a divided report. Typically it comes, saying the Democrats said yes, the Republicans said no, and then we'll vote on it. What we've seen is absolutely nothing except for 4 bills come from committees, even though they have voted on them and they should have been brought out of committee. I think they didn't want anything on the floor before they got rid of the budget situation. So there's tons of work. They're so busy in committees right now, but nothing has flowed out of committee into the chamber yet.
Okay, outside of, like you said, four bills and
Right.
and the fund supplemental budget, and
Mm-hmm.
now they've gone and passed biennial budget without any Republicans signing on to it, if I'm correct. And so one of the things that I think, in order to better understand this, to make clear, we'll try to make something clear from the Muddy Waters, but is this the how the budget process works. So basically, my understanding is, like, obviously there are the budget committees in both the House and the Senate, and they kind of work together to try and create a budget. And in order for funding, like, I think the way that our founders created it is that in order for the budget to pass without having to wait like 90 days to be able to implement it, because this session in this odd numbered year, typically the session goes January to June. And then at the end of it, the budget would be passed, and then the budget would take effect in July 1st. But if you can't get a 2/3 majority, my understanding is then there's a 90-day waiting period. Is that right? After the budget is passed?
Correct. So if you don't have 2/3, which is 101 people in the House, then you would have to go ahead and just have a majority budget for it to take 90 days. And because our fiscal year starts on July 1st in Maine, you want to back it up so that 90 days would mean that it's ready to go on July 1st. Without a 2/3, a 2/3 could have gone right to the governor's desk. She signs it and it goes into effect. But they had to do it before April 1 to make sure that 90 days would take effect by July 1st. And don't forget, there's 2 parts to this budget. They split it up as well. They split it up into part 1 and part 2. Part two is where you're going to see, they call it the continuing services budget. This first part, we call it the continuing wasteful budget because, it doesn't have anything in it that is watching over the numbers or slowing them down at all. The second part, what you're going to see probably are the taxes that they talked about. When the governor rolled her budget out originally, there were none really in the first part. So we still have an entire budget to go. And what should be said with that budget that they passed by their majority, with no bipartisan support, even though in the Senate, 2 Democrats voted no on the budget. So
Oh,
you
wow.
say that it was bipartisan opposition from the Senate at least,
Wow.
is that, we had to adjourn. And when we adjourn and she calls us back into a special session, we still have another budget to do. So what are we going to do? Adjourn again before April 1st. So all those things would go into effect for July 1st. It's, muddy waters get even dirtier at that point when they split it up and try to make excuses for them.
Yeah, I feel like I've gotten confused, and I thought I had a grip on it, and now I'm so there's actually 2 biennial budgets that they're passing, and one is the one that's passed without any bipartisan support and actually bipartisan opposition. I imagine those 2 Democrats that voted against it are in some of these swing districts, and they're doing this for optics. So
it was Stacey Brenner and shoot, I can't remember the other one right now, but I was surprised. I don't know.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to do some digging. It would be, if knowing that they were going to win no matter what, this would be a good time for somebody trying to earn favor with the other side in the swing district to vote against it. But regardless, there was opposition against it, and I think it's important to point out that the reason that it is set up this way is that ultimately our founding fathers didn't just want a simple majority; they wanted an overwhelming majority of the people that are representing the people of Maine to agree on a bill. And so how hard did the Democrats work to elicit bipartisan support?
Not at all. They weren't talking to us. They gave that 400-page, I think I left it on my desk, a 400-page budget to the Appropriations Committee at like 4 PM, and they ended up voting on it at 9:30 at night. Like, there was nothing that gave them the time to look this over, to think about it, to come on board with anything. I mean, they went back to all the things also that they originally proposed in the supplemental budget. Addition of free community college, paying for family leave for, I think, a couple state agencies, paying that family medical leave new tax that we have. They put everything back in. And on the floor, Drew Gattine, the representative who's the chair of the appropriations, he said that we had done nothing to try to go ahead and solve the problems of Maine Care and general assistance. And we talk a good talk when we tried to put in, into that first supplemental, some revisions to save the taxpayers money, but we basically didn't really care about it. Well, it was such an outright lie. It was so frustrating because we have bill after bill after bill on curbing general assistance, paying the hospitals. Just that day, Representative Drinkwater had put in a bill had a bill, and it was defeated, bipartisan. Democrats defeated it to make sure that we pay the hospitals. So it's all just drama for them. They don't really want to do the work. They just tried to put us in a bad light when it was literally lies. I mean, he should know better that those things were happening. Of course, we're going to put in bills to limit general assistance, to keep Mainers first, to pay the hospitals, to pay our debts. But, it's all theatrics at that point.
I don't understand why you guys don't just get on board with like 100% taxation, and the government spends all of our money and it tells us what we can do, when we can do it, how we can do it, why we can do it. I don't understand what the problem is. Unfortunately, Drew lives in my town, and we have 2.5. He's the half. He's maybe 2 1/3 representatives from Westbrook, and sad to hear that that's how he's representing us, with straight up lies. It's interesting. I've met him a couple of times, and he has this appearance. He puts off this appearance of being this nice, kind, guy who's like just a good all around guy. And I was a bit skeptical to begin with, but it's sad to hear that he is using that in some places, and then is just like straight up lying about what's going on. And it's interesting because I talked to some people about the supplemental budget as well, and I know that like in fact, like I think Republicans in the House and Senate are willing to compromise a lot more than a lot of their voters would want them to. So the idea that there's no willingness to compromise among those in the House and Senate is it is an outright lie. And they just want to, as they say, I think they want to have their cake and eat it too. It's just really unfortunate that you guys have to put up with that while trying to find a way to get something positive done for the people of Maine. It must be very frustrating.
It is. I mean, we had 14 amendments, I believe it was, on the floor to that budget as well that were introduced. I mean, there was a lot of bedlam that day. The amendments that we introduced, the Democrats indefinitely postponed all of them, which means they wouldn't even take a vote on them. They wouldn't hear any of them to take away some of the things or to compromise on some of them. As we saw, Representative Libby put in amendments herself, and even though they let her introduce the amendments, they didn't let her speak. So she was standing there the whole time while other people spoke to her amendments, which all got postponed. We had 8:30, 8:15 come, and Representative Boyer says, looking in our book, and these are the rules of the House, there's a bill a House rule that says, you have to, a paper may not be taken up out of its regular order. Business may not be transacted in the House after the hour of 9 p.m. So those are our rules. And if a rule is put aside, they have to vote to have that rule put aside, right? So we're sitting there at 8:15. Representative Boyer says, we're coming up on 9. Should we vote to see if we want to go past that? And he says, no, Speaker Fecto, we have to vote on that between 9 and 9:01. And we're like, all righty, but we're going on break because you're sending the bill to the Senate. So then he puts us at ease, which is basically a break. When does he call us back? 9:23. 9:23. Yeah. So we immediately, Representative Rudnicki immediately stands up, says it's 9:23. We didn't vote on doing our business. And he just then pretty much said, that's too bad. I suspend that rule, and we're still going.
Does he have the authority to suspend that? I mean, the stuff, like, it's wild to me that the stuff that we're talking about is the stuff that you expect and you hear out of Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. But you don't expect Mainers. These people are from Maine, and I have to believe that they have friends and neighbors that that aren't on the same side of the aisle as them. Hopefully, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they just completely cut themselves off from anybody who disagrees with them. But like, I just don't understand how you can behave like this, here in Maine and think they're going to get away with it. I hope they don't get away with it. I hope the people of Maine stand up and say, this is ridiculous, but we got to let the people in Maine know what's going on. So similar to what we hear in Congress, where they're submitting like a 1,600 page document. I guess this was a 400 page document, but that's just for the state of Maine. That's pretty crazy. When the entire United States has these bills, and sometimes they're shorter than that. And then on top of that, like he's literally violating the rules and just saying he unilaterally can change that, even though that's not what the House rules say. Am I understanding that right? He doesn't actually have the authority to do that, but he's doing it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the mantra seemed to be the speaker has ruled, or the speaker has spoken basically and said that that's the way it is. There's just no pause. There was just, this is what I'm doing. This is no explanation. It's just really frustrating. It really sets such a bad tone. It doesn't, help at all for anyone to feel that they're empowered. And it was a very difficult day for our members, just because it felt like, what do we do next? How can we overtake this? I mean, everybody says keep doing this or that, but there's really not a lot for us to do at that point. It's really going to take the people. The people have made such a huge difference in some of these issues. I think they're much more empowered than they think they are. So I definitely want people to feel like they have a say, even in the big picture, even if they don't feel their representative, is listening to them. The bigger picture is they're under a lot of pressure You can see cracks in it, not even to mention that we started our session yesterday with the, transgender chaplain, as he calls himself, doing the prayer in the morning, which myself and other people were not involved in. We stayed out and did our own prayer.
I'm not praying. I'm not praying with somebody like that. Like I just
so just
want to get
starting that
struck
way
by lightning,
Yeah, I know. We're surprised it didn't blow up, but just starting that way is they seem like they're smiling and they're friendly, but to do that and make that choice when they know that that is a huge issue for the Republican side, just pretty bad start to that day.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And the idea, the thing that was bizarre, and you've already addressed it, I'd heard about it, and I was like, so apparently they let Laurel, or Representative Laurel Libby, present her, like just present them, but not communicate what they meant.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So she had other people do that.
Like I'm confused though, because like if you say that she can't speak, but then you let her speak, what's going on there?
Like, I don't know. That's what's so hard is you really don't know when they don't communicate that.
So here's the thing. It's like I feel like if we have all these instances of Speaker Fecto just doing what he wants and ignoring the rules, what's our recourse? I mean, outside of voting him out, which we obviously need to do, like what's our recourse? Like, is there anything we can do to be like, let's sue him because he is like violating the Constitution of the of the state of Maine by not following the procedures set forth by him? He's not king. He doesn't get to decide when and what rules he abides by. Like what we have to have some sort of recourse, right?
If anybody knows, tell me. I mean, you could see where they're ruling against Representative Libby definitely puts them into hot water. Do these little things, if we weren't a minority party, you could censure him, you could go to ethics, you could probably do a bunch of things. But when not one person will budge from the Democrat side and see the shambles that the House is becoming, I don't know. We keep searching, we keep trying to think of things, definitely. But it seems to be when you have a super majority of Democrats that you kick and scream, and that's about where it gets you until November of 2026, when hopefully we overcome and vote them out.
Yeah, well, I think that's obviously what I'm focused on, trying to figure out how we can do that and partner with whoever we need to partner with, libertarians and whoever else, are unenrolled, disaffected Democrats. Which, if you're not a disaffected Democrat and you're watching the show, I don't know why you are. I'd love to have you, but you should be disaffected, given the fact that they are just this is not the way that our country was meant to be ruled. And I think the problem is, like you said, they have because they own everything, right? The Democrats control the House, the Senate, all of the officers, the governor, and the Maine Supreme Court is all run by Democrats. And unfortunately, that makes it a bit challenging to be able to get much done here. Which is why one party rule is not good. It's so funny that I say that because I'm not for a one party rule either. I'm for diversity of thought. That's actually what our country was founded on. And I lost my thought, so that was fun. Happens from time to time, but yeah, I think I'm not interested in a one-party rule. That's where I was going. That's where we get into scary places. And in 2024, the Democrats tried to tell us that if you don't vote for the Democrats, then you're against democracy. And it's like, what? Like, what are you talking about? This is the antithesis of democracy. And it's unfortunate that we can't get any of the Democrats to budge in areas where they have to know that they're in the wrong. I would imagine, right, on some of these issues.
Yesterday we had an amendment for girls or boys and girls sports, right? And just kind of threw it out there. Didn't really have much to do with the budget, but let's take a vote on it. The truth is no Democrats budged, even with all the pressure. They didn't. They won with a district where someone only won by 9. They didn't feel that they should go ahead and on this amendment that was no way going to pass, throw out a little yellow flag and say, okay, maybe I will vote this way or that. They're still extremely lockstep together, not breaking at all.
Which district was that in? Can you tell us who that was?
Well, like Sally Kluge, she only won
Okay.
by 9 down in Bowdoin, I think it is. So like
Okay.
she literally has a 50% split district. And when you look at the sports issue, it's 80-20 anyway. So why
Yeah.
not why not just have voted with us yesterday, at least play the politics and pretend that, you're gonna stick up for your people.
I saw something similar with somebody in the Senate. I think I don't remember what district he is, but Mike Tipping. I think he won, but I mean, he's at 50%,
Sure.
right? He's like
Yeah,
he
yeah.
literally just barely got across the finish line, and still just on. I think I can't remember what issue it was, but it seemed like one of the controversial issues, and just voted
Mhm.
lockstep with the Democrats without any criticism. And in fact, it seemed to be. Again, I'd have to go back and look at where I'm getting this from, but I remember seeing it somewhere and I've got him in my mind because I've got a list of all the House and Senate reps and what percentages they won with, and so I'm
Mhm.
remembering some of them. There's a lot more in the House. There are a lot of close races in
Yeah.
the House.
Oh, definitely.
Not so much in the Senate. There were like his was the closest, and there were a couple others that were like 52-48. But anyway, so I was like, what is he doing being so bold in the
Yeah.
midst of this? And it just I was talking to, I think it might have been Bobby Charles or somebody else, but I was just wondering, like, why, like, do they think that they're just going to win in perpetuity forever, and that no matter what they do, there aren't going to be any consequences for their actions, or are they not even thinking about 2026?
Oh, they're always thinking. They're
Yeah,
always thinking, but those coastal towns, it is the other districts you'd think they'd be concerned about, but they believe they're right. Just like Shelley Pingree, the things she says, are
yeah.
insane for representing, obviously she represents more being from the coast and everything, Democrats, but still throw a bone once in a while to your conservative people. I don't
Do you
know.
think that should they really believe? I mean, do you think they really believe this stuff? Because like it hurts my head to think about how how you could come to the place of believing some of the things that they support, specifically the boys and women's sports. But do you think that the majority of these Democrats actually buy into, what the gender cult, the Marxist socialistic ideology, some of the other authoritarian rule kind of things that they're pushing?
I think the ones that got elected do. I mean, whether it's because they were chosen in their districts by Planned Parenthood or the Democrat Party themselves, who are, on that socialist track, they haven't let the people get elected that might have been more moderate. They have really handpicked and kept those people. But if, the other thing to mention is that the transportation budget passed overwhelmingly bipartisan. I don't even know if there were a
Oh,
couple of people maybe who voted against it. Transportation duked it out. Sure, to probably a couple things maybe we wouldn't like, but like we can work together because we want our roads, we want all of our infrastructure to be taken care of. That can pass. Why not make the budget 10 parts if you need to, so we can pass a couple and not all of them or something, find those places where we can agree. But I don't know. We don't agree. Main care is growing. There was 400,000 people on main care. Now there's 425. They expect it to be 450,000 people on main care soon. Us paying for all these people, like this literally a tax on us. My husband, doesn't have health care. I have
me
health care
neither.
through the state. I mean, it's not a system, but yet I'm still paying for some of these people. Some obviously need that assistance. I think they said yesterday 180,000 people are on that sort of program in New Hampshire. Why? And
Wow.
they're the same population as us. It's insane. That's where they want everybody to be beholden to the government for some reason. They don't even get good health care. Can't even get an appointment. Why bother? But we're in big trouble. And there's no cuts. There's nothing that our constituents want or that they need. It's not even that they want cuts. They need cuts. We need to be able to live in Maine and we can't afford it. It's insanity.
Yeah, it's again, that's one of those things where it's just hard to understand when you look at those numbers and say New Hampshire about similar size, maybe a little bit bigger than us in population. and they have that many less people. Well, maybe the people in New Hampshire just hate poor people.
Yeah.
Come on, stop. Like that's got to be their only response. But like, they have to recognize, because they're having to try and find a way to deal with this. But like, I think they're just like, well, we'll just find more things to tax. And they're not even concerned about the impacts to the economy. They, like, as these businesses close down, they just turn a blind eye. And it really is, some 1984 type of stuff where they're like literally forcing themselves to believe something other than what they see with their eyes. And they're trying to get us to go along with it. Well, anyway, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I just want to thank you so much for continuing to be there and continue to fight. A lot of people at home don't realize, how long hours that you guys are there, and how much of a thankless job it is to try to go in and convince people, I would say these insane people. I feel like living in America, especially in Maine, with like the insanity of what the liberals actually believe at this point, it really hurts my head. That's why I enjoy visiting my wife in Kenya, because like I don't have to deal with that kind of insanity. But like being in Maine in politics and working with Democrats really feels like trying to go in and teach math in an insane asylum. It's really difficult, and you guys do that day in and day out. And so to you and the rest of the House and Senate, I think probably not everyone is doing as much for us as we would like, but the truth is, like, you guys are fighting for us. While not having the power to really affect as much change as we would like, but doing the best you can.
Yeah. And I mean, really kudos to all of the representatives and senators. It is a hard job. We can't be beaten up on each other. We have a greater evil, a greater concern in this state than one another. Leave it to the red states to fight amongst themselves. But here in this state, the only one, that we are concerned about are the blue on the other side of the aisle, and trying to make the future better for Maine, for sure.
Yeah, so absolutely. Let's not. There's a huge temptation that when things aren't going well to start blaming each other for why it's not happening, but ultimately it's all of us, right? Like if we want to try to place blame on why Maine isn't more red, it falls on the shoulders of every single Republican, every person who knows or believes that they have the truth, and we're not doing a good enough job collectively. And there's plenty of blame to go around. We can all point fingers, but that doesn't do us any good. Let's figure out how we can work well together. And I'm just thankful to have allies in this fight. And just thank you for what you're doing, and for, again, the rest of the members of the House and Senate who are. Like I said, I talked to one person who ran and was telling me that, like, he's like, I kind of am glad I lost at this point. And like, he's not really, like, he would have been happy to be there, but like the point that he's getting at is like, how fun would it be to go up to Augusta, however many times a week, just to get browbeat and like not be able to do anything, and then have half of the Republicans in the sitting at home complaining that you're not doing enough, when you literally are handcuffed. You can't do anything because the Speaker of the House is making up rules and deciding that he can do whatever the heck he wants, and he's somehow getting away with it because there isn't like any recourse. Like, if there was recourse, you guys would have taken it. And people at home like, oh, they should do more. It's like what? Come on, come up with a solution. If you've got a solution, that would be great.
Send me a message. I swear, right? I'll listen.
So, all right. Well, thanks again. I just thank you for taking the time on your Saturday after a long, annoying week. And I just really appreciate what you guys are doing. And everybody at home, figure out how you can get involved in your city committee. Pay attention to legislative updates. They're on pinetreepatriots.org, I think. Or there's a website for the Pine Tree Patriots now. I can't remember the exact details of it. Danny Emerson also sends out a crazy amount of updates on legislative things, on ways in which you can submit testimony and things like that. But get involved. You can also give money to a number of different places. I'm always trying to get more money for the Cumberland County Republican Committee, because I think the road to winning our state back runs through Cumberland County, and that's where I'm also the chair. So if you want to get involved, you've got ways to help, let us know. Have a good day. Thanks.